Today we're going to talk about units and unit conversion between units in the U.S. system and then the international system. Conversion between units. And I have a lot to talk about, so let's just jump right into it. First thing I want to do is talk to you about some general ideas on how I'm going to ask you to convert your units. So let's just jump right into it. What I have here is I have a dime, and let's see if you can see it. I've got 10 pennies here. All right, I've got a dime and 10 pennies. All right, 5 down here, and then 5 up here. 1 dime is the same thing as 10 pennies. All right, so 1 dime, you've got a unit that's a dime. And the unit that's a dime is worth more than the unit that's a penny. This is bigger than that. All right, this unit is bigger than that. So that is why you need 10 of these pennies to make 1 dime. You need 10 pennies just to equal 1 dime. All right, so this idea is critical to converting units within the metric system. I want to say it's so critical, I want to say it one more time. Because the unit penny is so small, this unit penny is so small, you need 10 of them just to make 1 dime. All right, so one of the things that you're going to hear me say over and over again is the smaller the unit, the larger the number of them that you need. The smaller the unit, the larger the number of them that you need. Because a penny is such a small unit compared to the dime, that's why you need so many of them to make 1 dime. This is going to be critical that you understand what I'm saying when we begin converting within the metric system. All right, so that's the number 1 concept, just that. The number 2 concept, and then we'll get to a couple problems, is understanding this metric system. Some students have been introduced to the acronym Kevin has dandruff but doesn't care much. Kevin has dandruff but doesn't care much. Students are taught that to learn the very, very common prefixes within the metric system: kilo, hecto, deca, base, deci, centi, milli. Kevin has dandruff but doesn't care much. All right, so if you remember that little expression, you'll be able to remember the order from largest prefix unit to the smaller unit within the metric system. And notice how what I've done. I made the kilo large, I made the hecto large to show you that kilo is the largest of the units we're going to talk about today. And milli, I made the word milli very small to show you that milli is a very, very small, it's going to represent a very, very small unit compared to these units up here. So I tried to adjust the size of the letters to show you that kilo is big compared to milli. All right, so like I said before, the relationship between a dime is bigger than a penny. A dime is bigger than a penny, so that's why you need a lot of pennies to make 1 dime. You're going to have to remember that. 10 pennies make 1 dime. You're going to have to remember that. And you're also going to have to remember, like I said, the smaller the unit, the larger the number. You're going to have to remember that. And in addition to that, you're going to have to remember the order of these prefixed units. Kilo is big, milli is small. The word milli even sounds small. Look at that little milli, small ant. The word milli even sounds small. So we're going to have to keep that in mind as we attack some of these problems I'm going to present to you. All right, so now let's take a look here. Again, it's similar to 10 pennies equaling 1 dime. You'll have to know that 10 liters make 1 centiliter. 10 centiliters make 1 deciliter. 10 decimeters make a meter. 10 liters make a deciliter. So similar to the 10 pennies equaling 1 dime, that same relationship exists between each of these consecutive units. All right, enough talking. Let's get into some problems. All right, so what do you have? This problem says, I hope you can read it. It says that 4 centiliters is equal to how many liters? Well, what I'd like you to be able to understand here is the smaller the unit, the larger the number. So if you look at centi, which is here, and you look at liters, the base, which is here. All right, so centiliters is smaller. Centi is smaller than liters. The smaller the unit, the larger the number. So because this 4 is with the centiliters, the smaller this unit is, the bigger this number is. So this number is going to be larger compared to liters. How much larger? Well, by a factor of 2. 1, 2. So you're going to put the 4 here. Another way to say 4 is 4.0. You bring this number straight over, and you're just going to move the decimal place over 2. How many places? Well, I told you that the smaller the unit, centi is smaller than the base liters. The smaller this unit, the bigger this number. So this number is going to be bigger than that. So that's why you're going to move it to the left, a factor of 2. You put your decimal here, and the final answer is 0.04. 4 centiliters is equal to 0.04 liters. All right, so I'm going to keep going unless someone calls in with their questions. Let's keep going. We got another problem. We got another problem for you. All right, let's take a look at it. Now what we have 52 liters is equal to how many? You might not be able to read it, but it says hectoliters. 52 liters is equal to how many hectoliters? Well, the smaller the unit, the bigger the number. All right, so liters and hectoliters. All right, so you got liters here, hectoliters here. Which one is smaller? Well, you got liters, that is the base, and then you got hecto. All right, that's here. Liters is smaller. Liters is smaller than hectoliters. So the smaller this unit, the bigger that number has to be compared to that. So let's write the 52 again. Another way to say 52 is 52.0. 52.0. All right. So you're going to move this decimal place. This number, because liters is smaller, the smaller this unit is, the bigger this number has to be compared to that number. All right. So what are we going to do? Because this has to be smaller, we're going to move it by a factor, again, of 1, 2. All right, so we can move the decimal place over 1, 2, and then that will be your final answer, 0.52. 0.52. 52 liters is equal to 0.52 hectoliters. All right, 52 liters is equal to 0.52 hectoliters. We got 4.9, I hope you can read it, kiloliters. 4.9 kiloliters is equal to how many decaliters? All right, so again, let me erase this here. Erase this here, get that out of the way. Get a better eraser maybe. Oh boy, okay. Well, we got 4.9 kilo. All right, so we got 4.9 kilo, and we're converting to deca. All right, converting to deca. All right, so what are we going to do here? Well, which unit is smaller? Which unit is smaller? Because the smaller the unit, the larger the number that's accompanying that unit? Well, you got 4.9 kiloliters compared to deca. Deca is smaller. The decaliter is smaller. All right, so what would you do here? You would put the 4.9 there, put the 4.9 there, but because the decaliter is smaller compared to the kilo, the smaller this unit, the bigger this number has to be. How much bigger? Well, again, a factor of 1, 2. Factor of 2. So the smaller this unit, the bigger this number has to be. So we're going to move this number a factor of 2. 1, 2. You move the decimal place 2, and you end up with the new number of 490. 4.9 kiloliters is equal to 49 decaliters. 4.9 kilometers is equal to 490 decameters. All right, so let's just do an additional problem. We'll change this to maybe decameter or decameter, DKM. Let's do one last problem within this metric system. One last problem, all right, because I don't want to confuse people who might say, well, we've only moved a factor of 2 each time. What would I do if I have to move more than a factor of 2 decimal places? Let's look at one of those. All right, so what we have is 504.1 millimeters. Milli. Even that just sounds small. 504.1 millimeters is equal to how many decameters? All right, so what we would do here is we'd rewrite the number 504.1. 504.1. The smaller this unit, the bigger that number here is going to be. The smaller this unit, the bigger that number is going to be. So it's bigger by a factor of how much? Well, here you're at milli to deca. That's a factor of 1, 2, 3, 4. Deca is larger than milli by a factor of 4 decimal places. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what are we going to do? You're going to, again, the smaller this unit, the bigger this number has to be. All right, so you're going to make this number smaller. This number has to be large compared to that. So by how much? By a factor of 4. Going to go over 1, 2, 3, and you got to go over one more decimal place. So it'd be a decimal place here. The final answer would be point. You'd have to put a 0 in between this decimal and that 5. You'd end up with 0.05041. All right. So 504.1 millimeters is equal to 0.05041 decameters. We move the decimal over 1, 2, 3, 4 because deca is larger than milli by a factor of 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to do one more problem. One more problem. Let's say we have 500.2 decameters. Boy, I'm rushing a little bit. Forgive me. Decameters is equal to how many millimeters? I just want to do one more problem. All right, so you got the deca and the milli again. You're looking at a factor of 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so again, let's write the 500.2 again. But deca, once again, is larger by a factor of 4. But here, milli is the smaller unit. Milli is a smaller unit, so the smaller this unit, the bigger this number has to be compared to this number here by a factor of 4. So we got to make this number larger. So you'd end up with moving the decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4. You put the decimal here, and you'd put zeros in between there. So what you'd end up with is 5 million. 5 million 2,000. So 500, all right, so 500.2 decameters is equal to, you put a comma here, 5,002,000 millimeters. All right, so that's sort of a mouthful. That's all we have time for to talk about as it pertains to converting within the metric system. I'm hoping that really helps. I'm hoping that really helps people convert within the metric system. We could have done a lot more problems. But the thing is, I want to get to the U.S. system. In the U.S. system, we rarely hear about millimeters and centiliters. We rarely hear about that. We hear about gallons. Hey, son, go to the store and get me a gallon of milk, right? Or we hear a quart. We hear about, this is a quart, by the way. All right, so we're going to talk within the U.S. system, and then we're going to be done for the day. Last thing I want to say about the metric system is all the counting and whatnot that I did. The more practice you do, the less of that you'll have to do, counting by a factor of 4 and so forth. You're not going to have to do that. So the more you practice, the less of what I did you're going to have to do, because it'll just come naturally. You'll commit a lot of this stuff to memory.